Next on the agenda, we have LUG from DDN. Hey, how's it going? He's a senior Lustre developer of Advanced Solution Laboratory in DDN. He's been working as a Lustre developer and Linux kernel developer for more than 7 years. He has contributed a lot of codes to Lustre, ext4, and other open source projects. Before DDN, he was working at Jiangnan Institute of Computing Technology and developing several storage softwares, including I/O forwarding systems, a distributed cache system, and also a distributed file system based on Lustre. Lee.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lee from DDN, and now I'd like to talk a little about what DDN has done on Project Quota for Lustre. So the first question is, what is Project Quota? Well, Project Quota, of course, is a Quota project. And the project is an aggregation of unrelated inodes that might scatter into different directories. And Project Quota is a new quota type. We know that we already have user quota and group quota, and Project Quota is a new quota type, which is different from user quota or group quota. And currently, there are several file systems that support Project Quota. For example, the XFS, and the GPFS, and the EST4. While GPFS doesn't use the name of Project Quota, it has file set quota. It is kind of different from Project Quota, but the idea behind them are almost the same. And well, we are working on Project Quota for Lustre, so it is coming soon. So about a year ago, we pushed the Project Quota patch to EST4 community. And about 2 months ago, those patches has been merged into the mainline kernel since Linux 4.5. And at the time that we pushed the first version of the patch, we had a decision to make. The decision is where to save the project ID. Well, we need to save project ID into every inode. And we have two decisions. The first choice is to save it as an internal field of inode. And the second choice is to save it as an extended attribute of that inode. And in order to make the right decision, we implement it in 2 ways, and we run benchmarks on them. And we got the results, as we can see in this graph. If we implement it as an extended attribute, we will see significant performance impact. So finally, the ext4 community accepted the patch that implements the project ID as an internal field of the inode. So that's important because the performance is not important. It's not only important for ext4. It is important for the performance of Lustre too. And we run benchmarks of file removal on ext4 too. We didn't see any performance impact caused by the Project Quota. Okay, here comes another question. Why do we want Project Quota? We already have user quota and group quota. But however, as far as we know, user or group quota are not enough for some use cases because we don't change user or group quota configurations frequently, right? But the projects in a file system might change frequently. That means we can't use user or group quota for these use cases. And if we have the Project Quota, we can do the space accounting and limitation enforcement based on OSTs, based on subdirectories, based on file set or projects. And if we are able to do that, we can use it in different kinds of use cases. And that's why we want to implement the Project Quota. And there are some important concepts about Project Quota. The first one is what I mentioned, project ID. We need to save an ID of the project into every inode of the file system. And another concept is the inherit flag. The inherit flag is a flag that belongs to each inode, which we can use to change the behavior of the inode related to Project Quota. For example, if there is a directory with inherit flag, following things will happen. For example, the first one, if you create a subfiles under that directory, it will inherit the project ID from the parent directory. And the second, if you rename an inode with different project ID to the directory, and you will get a failure. The special failure number is EXDV error number. And if you do similar things of hard links, you will fail too, because it is not allowed to have an inode with different ID under that directory with inherit flag. And if you do df under that directory, you might get some different results. For example, you expect that the result will be the file system capacity, but actually the output might be the quota limits of that project. So that's pretty much of the semantics of Project Quota. And in order to implement Project Quota in Lustre, we need to know the architecture of Lustre Quota. The two important concepts of Quota in Lustre is the Quota master and the Quota slave. The Quota master is a centralized server that hosts the cluster-wide limits, and Quota slaves include all of the OSTs and MDTs. And the Quota slave manages the local quota usage and the limits. And if it doesn't have enough quota, it will acquire more quota from the Quota master. So this graph shows how Quota acts inside Lustre. The client sends write a request to OSS, and the OSS do local quota check. If the local quota is not enough, it will acquire more quota from the Quota master. And with that background, we are going to implement the Project Quota in this framework. And we have several goals in the implementation. The first goal is we want to integrate the Project Quota into the current framework. That means we need to enforce both block and inode quotas. We want to support hard and soft limitations. And another goal is that we want to integrate OST pool with Project Quota. Now I'd like to do a simple survey here. So how many people of you have heard of OST pool? OK, that's a lot. And the second question, how many people know that OST pool is under use on a production system? OK, I got one. Oh, two. OK. So actually, OST pool has existed in Lustre for a long time, but it is not so widely used, as we can see. And that's one of the reasons we want to combine OST pool with Project Quota. Because as long as we have the Project Quota feature with for OST pool, I think OST pool will be widely used than before. And with the OST pool, I think Project Quota will have some new use cases than the pure Project Quota. And finally, the last goal is that we don't want to introduce any significant impact to the Lustre, of course. And as said, we want to integrate the OST pool with Project Quota. That means we want to use the pool ID as project ID. And we need to change the pool definition in LUG to add pool ID into each pool. And whenever administrator modify or create a pool ID will be allocated to that pool. And that pool definition will be scattered into different components of Lustre. And those components can use the pool ID if they needed to. So this is a flow of a write request when we integrate the pool ID, integrate the OST pool with Project Quota. I'm not going to look into all of the details in the implementation. Most of the codes are already there, and we only need to integrate the Project Quota support into the existing codes. What looks more interesting is what we can do by using Project Quota, well, than the implementation details. The first use case in my head is that we might be able to use it as the usage accounting or restriction of subdirectories. Let's imagine that you have a big directory, and you want to monitor the space usage of that directory. In order to do that, you need to run the du command frequently. And unfortunately, because the directory is so big, every time you run the du command, it will cost you minutes or even hours until the result prints out, right? But if we have the Project Quota, we can replace the du command to LFS Quota command. And you can, as soon as you run that command, you can get out the result immediately. And that saves time, right? And the second use case is that we can use it for the usage accounting or restriction of file set according to the file's attributes. Let's imagine that you want to know how much space of all the files that are larger than 1 gigabyte. Well, in order to do that, you need to write a script to find all the files that are larger than 1 gigabyte, right? And if you are going to monitor the space usage from time to time, you need to run that script frequently. And since Lustre file systems are usually very big, that costs a lot of time. So, but however, if you have Project Quota, you can do it very easily by using following steps. First, you run fs find or find command to find all of those files, and you set the pool ID or project ID of those files to a given ID, given project or given ID. And whenever you want to know the space usage of those files in the file set, you run LFS Quota command, and the output prints out immediately. And the third use case is that we can use it as to get the total usage limitations of collaboration projects. Collaboration is important for everyone. Every people collaborate with each other, right? And that happens in Lustre file system too, because people need to share data with each other. And people might need to work on the same project at the same time. And as an administrator, you might want to get the space usage of those projects, and you might want to limit the space usage of those projects. And with Project Quota, we can do that simply. And the final use case is that we can use you can use Project Quota to track the usage of different OST types. Let's imagine that you have 3 different kinds of OSTs. And some of them are very fast OSTs. Well, they might be based on SSD. And some of them are very slow OSTs. And with OST pool, you can separate those OSTs into different OST pool. And you can use OST pool for different purposes. For example, the quick OST pools, you might want to use it for running jobs because you want the jobs to finish as quickly as possible. And you might want to use the slow OSTs for archive because archive doesn't need too much bandwidth, right? And with Project Quota, you can get the usage of those OST pools. That is very useful for administrators. Okay, Project Quota for Lustre is coming soon, and we are trying to push all of the patches to the mainline Lustre as soon as possible. And we want to push all of the critical patches that change disk format or protocol to Lustre 2.9, and that includes EST4 patches or LDiskFS patches and E2FS procs patches, and also the Lustre Quota cleanup patches and the patch that add support of ProID to the OST pool configuration. And you can check the progress of the project on LU4017 ticket whenever you want. And all of other Lustre Quota, Project Quota patches will be pushed after Lustre 2.9. And we are currently doing a lot of tests and benchmarks on the Project Quota patches. And we, of course, need more reviews from the community to make sure that those patches are good enough. Okay, conclusion is that we propose the implementation of Project Quota in Lustre. And what is important is that we implement Lustre in a way that it shares the same semantics with XFS and the EST4. It is important because we want to use the same tools to manage Project Quota, and we want to provide the same API to applications. And we think that the idea to combine Project Quota with OST pools enables more use cases than pure Project Quota. We have discussed it before, right? And finally, we run benchmarks on Project Quota. Well, currently not on Lustre, but on EST4. And we didn't see any performance impact until now. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
So did I understand you correctly that the only way to set the quota ID is by changing the pool? Or are they, in other words, are they intimately connected or are they disconnected? Is it possible to use some other mechanism to set the group ID or the project ID?
Yeah, we can consider pool as the same as project. So yes, if you want to change the project ID of that node, you need to change the pool ID. But it doesn't mean that you need to change the layout because it is only an ID, right? You don't need to change the layout of that file to change the ID.
So you're saying you're disconnecting the pool definition from the actual layout?
Yeah. Well, it is not currently implemented, but I want to support it in that way. So, well, yeah, change the pool ID or pool name of a file, well, the system won't change the layout. That's what I'm going to implement.
Yeah, there's also for non-Lustre file systems, there'll be adder from the EQFS progs XFS tool. I don't know what the XFS tool is called. For manipulating, there's an ioctl that those file systems support. Lustre will support the same ioctl for changing pool ID.
Yeah.
The definition of a pool then becomes broader than it is now. Right now, pool definition means this is a striping pattern. And you're saying, rather than the pool definition meaning a striping pattern, you're saying pool definition is now a project ID, unrelated to a striping pattern. It just feels a little confusing there.
Andreas, I'm on the way.
Pools never meant a striping pattern per se. Pools were just a grouping for a name for a group of OSTs, and you could specify, a 1-stripe file or a 5-stripe file or whatever inside that pool. It was just this is a pool name was this is a group of OSTs, and how you use those OSTs was still flexible, right? And this is, I mean, the project ID. Is a new identifier, and it will be tracked on all of the OST objects and things like that, which it isn't today, right? So you'll be able to account for all of the files within a pool.
But the project ID is completely unrelated to the set of OSTs that formerly pool meant.
That's always been true too, right? I mean, you could change the definition of a pool after the fact, right? But yeah, we can talk offline.
So am I correct in understanding that there's no way to limit someone from writing into a pool? Today, yeah. Okay, so if you create 3 pools and you're trying to, corral Bob Davis into pool number 1, that there's still a chance that he could write into pool number 2?
Yes, if he knows how to do the layout and specify different pools, yes.
Okay. No, I'm all about that. That's part of why I'm asking, because that's one of the things that's kind of a pain right now. So
more questions. Your current project Quota only worked on the LDSS-based backend, right? Not on CFS backend.
Yeah. We currently only support EST4, not CFS. But I think, we would like to see someone to implement the support of CFS in the future, not long from now. Yeah.
Okay. For a given file, it can only belong to one project quota, or it can belong to multiple project quota?
No. One inode can only belong to one project, and it can only have one project ID.
I think it may be restricted by some on-disk layout. For example, if you record something on the inode, right? Mm-hmm. To identify which project ID the file belongs to, right?
Yeah. Well,
but if you record it in some external attribute, maybe you can add more ID in it. So
well, but it will make things more complex, right? Well, currently we can consider ID of project like the ID of user or ID of group. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't have multiple user ID or user IDs or
but
group
we
IDs
have
for
multiple groups ID, right? So for one file, it can be shared by different projects, right?
Yeah. Well,
and even
in
for
theory,
the
we can
pools,
do that. Yeah, but well, it makes things too complex.
Yeah, currently for OST pools, for a given OST, it can belong to multiple pools. if
Yeah,
we
yeah.
want.
Yes, but well, project ID, what to say? Well, yes, one OST can belong to multiple OST pools,
Yeah.
but it is different from the fact that each inode has only one pool ID or project ID.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, it is just some suggestion. I just want to know, not to say it how to be done like that. Okay. Thank you.
Hello. So in ext4, do you count for inodes or just blocks?
No, we count both inode and block usage.
Right. So then, did you benchmark impact of additional counting for inodes for just pure file creation?
Yeah, just file creation and file removal right now. But I don't think there will be any performance impact. At least some obvious reasons that there will be any performance impact.
The reason I'm asking is that,
Yeah.
well, basically in my benchmarks, I see that inode accounting, in contrast with block accounting, is actually quite expensive, especially the way it's done in ext4, which is, well, basically on per creation basis, right? And now we already have two, how to say, accounting tables, and if we add another one, we get. I'm sure.
So may I ask what's the version of EST4 you are testing? Because about 1 year ago, I think people from Yahweh from Intel pushed a patch to improve the project.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
With that patch, it's it's still
Still problem?
the patch improves things for sure, but I mean even with that patch,
Still problem?
it's quite significant performance drop, and with another table we get another one. So probably I don't know, either we don't count that, or we just accept loss, or we probably should be thinking about some sort of, I don't know, batching. The thing that helps block accounting is that it's done in much larger units, how to say, right?
Oh, thank you, because I didn't know that before.
Okay, I think that's all we've got time for.
Okay,
Lee, thanks so much. Let's give him a hand.
thank you.